Hey, what's up, Obi Tribe? Thanks for joining us today. Today we are going to be doing an overview of a bunch of updates that we've done on some of our best-selling products. I've brought Brigham, our product designer, on camera with me today to go over some of these and talk about some of these. We've been cranking out a ton of new designs and refreshes to some of our old stuff to follow along with the Live Ultralight mindset. So kind of going along those lines, what we really wanted to do with these products is simplify them, minimize them, reduce weights, improve function, improve the compressibility, these types of things, and then also improve the warmth of all of our bags that we've done these refreshes on. So today we just wanted to go through, dive into each one of those individually and explain the pros and cons. So the bags that we'll be covering today will be the Atlas, the Summit, the Aeries, and then we did do a small update to the Mummy Pod that we'll probably touch on as well as we're explaining some of these. And we've also released them in some new temperature ratings as well. So let's go ahead and dive into the Atlas and the Summit, and then we'll also explain when you might want to choose one over the other. So let's start there. All right, so for starters, we want to talk about what some of the similarities are between these two bags. Then we'll talk about the differences, and then we'll kind of weigh the pros and cons between each bag. So obviously and clearly, the first thing you're going to notice is that our Summit sleeping bag, we switched it to a center zip design just like we did with our Atlas on a pretty recent update. We really like this center zip design. We feel like it offers a lot of ease of getting in and out of the bag, but we had to work especially hard to make sure that zipper baffle worked really well. And so historically on these zipper baffles, we have done what most companies have done, which is this will come back to a single point, and it creates a little bit of a cold spot, and sometimes you'll actually see an indent in some of these other types of bags that may have a center zipper where that insulation, there's just not as much insulation there. So we went to what's called a box baffle, and that box baffle allows this to stay fully lofted and insulated and give you a barrier instead of a sewing line, essentially of a cold spot. Now you've got a full barrier in that zipper. In our testing that we've used and experienced this bag, you lose no warmth through that zipper, and we were also able to cut off some of that zipper length. So instead of having to go from clear up here all the way around the outside of the bag and down, we're able to cut off zipper length, which reduced weight in some of those. Other things that are the same, we changed and started to do a different style of adjustment here on the hood. So here on the hood, we've got two small poles right here that you can use to cinch down that face and tuck in around there. It's just a lower profile way to make sure that we cinch down the face and increase warmth. And then maybe the last thing kind of on this particular thread is these shoulder baffles. So we went with the same Mummy Pod style shoulder baffle, same baffle we've had on that Atlas for a little while. Basically, this acts like a mini blanket just that you tuck up and around your shoulders. It seals really, really well, and you've got a piece of Velcro so that you can connect those two pieces and completely seal out that product. Anything I'm missing on those fronts, Brigham?
Don't think so.
Okay. As far as other similarities, the foot box itself, we also changed and slightly altered. So on the foot box, historically we've had a little bit more of an oval one, and we've made this a little bit more square and a little bit more tall. What this allows you to do is basically follow the function of your foot, and when your foot's in here, it's a little bit taller, making sure that your toes aren't compressing any insulation, and you don't really need this to be wider per se, because when your feet fall, they're falling outwards like this typically. So we are actually able to make this a little bit tighter and reduce some more weight here, but increase the function and the warmth on that foot box. And then last thing that I'll kind of note on the similarities is just the overall cuts. Now this one right here is a prototype, whereas these ones are actually production models. So one thing you will note is there's a few things that we've trimmed and tapered, but overall the trim of these two products is much different than some of our older products. We actually increased the height of where this is at its widest point, and then we've increased the taper as it goes down towards your feet. So it's slightly more narrow of a bag. Not an incredible amount, but we did slightly tailor it in. And what that's going to do is increase its warmth level as well, because we're taking the same insulation, we're using the same insulation, and actually in some of our Summits, like the Summit Zeros and the negative 15 bags, obviously, but in the Summit Zeros, we actually added another ounce of down to this at the same time we narrowed it, so they're getting warmer and warmer. And then perhaps the last thing to note on this, obviously, is just the difference in baffles. So Because this uses Loft-Tech, we have to lock in that Loft-Tech a little bit more than an 800 fill power down. So we use these long vertical baffles on the down product, and then switch to the horizontal style baffle in this foot box. And what that does is it just allows us to really lock in the down here and as well as up here. But the biggest thing is when you calculate it out, every seam actually adds weight to a product, and so we're able to reduce the overall amount of seams in this style of a design. So anything else I'm missing? I mean, obviously we've got our anti-snags. Brigham typically has a lot to say, but when the camera's rolling, we might not get him to talk so much. But he had a lot to definitely do with these updates and improvements on these bags. So far, we've just absolutely loved them. We think you're going to love them. Like I say, it's reduced a lot of weight. Let's jump into some of the differences on these bags. Well, one thing, we did add a limited order or limited quantity of the -15 bags. That's the bag that's just right there behind Brigham. We're doing a blackout series in both the Summit and the Atlas, and that is a -15 degree bag. Okay, diving into more of these differences besides just the baffling here. The main thing you're going to notice is the fabric. So when you fill this fabric, this is a 10 denier fabric. It's the same type of fabric we've been using on our top quilts. So that was able to pull a lot of the weight out. Between that and the tapering, we dropped about a half of a pound out of our Summit bags, which was already, our lightest sleeping bag that we offered in our line. So right now, I remember calculating some of these out, but for instance, our 15 degree Summit bag is now below 2 pounds. And so on and so forth. So we've really cut out a lot of weight, and then compressibility on this 10 denier fabric is very, very high. On the Atlas here, we have a 20 denier, and that 20 denier is the same. Is basically the same fabric we have been using, but we chose to keep it just because if you're choosing Loft-Tech, you're probably choosing it for some of the rugged abilities and moisture abilities. While it doesn't add a whole lot to the moisture factor, it does add a little bit to the ruggedness and a little bit on the price point. This 10 denier, I mean, this is our new definitely flagship design product where you've definitely added some price to this just by going to these high-end fabrics. So, okay, let's talk for a second here, Brigham, just about when we would choose one of these products versus the other. Obviously, they look a lot the same. They act a lot the same. So what are you getting if you get the Atlas over the Summit or the Summit over the Atlas?
Yeah, so you touched on it already. Like the big thing with the Atlas here, 20 denier fabric, it's going to be a little more durable, hold up a little better to almost carelessness and wet environments. Also with the hybrid synthetic insulation, you're getting the ability to stay warm. You can get this thing soaked and you'll have a lot of insulation value still. That's kind of the big difference in terms of what you're getting with the Atlas versus the Summit. The Summit, you're getting like ultimate compressibility, ultimate weight savings, and it does have a slightly softer feeling hand, but that's kind of just a byproduct of it being a 10D fabric. So big weight savings, big compressibility.
Yeah. So when would you choose to take an Atlas over a Summit or a Summit over an Atlas? Is there any scenarios where that makes sense?
Yep. If I were going to be doing extended trips in wet environments geographically, like say Pacific Northwest or Alaska, where there's a high likelihood of either getting in the sleeping bag when you're soaked or the sleeping bag being compromised and getting wet, I would go with the Atlas Hybrid. Summit, I would go that direction if I was going to be doing extended long distance trips, backpacking long distances, multiple days where weight was like a high priority, saving as much weight and space inside a pack by that added compressibility of the down.
Yeah, I think that's really big. For me, we live in Utah, so I'm still using the Summit a lot more often than the Atlas. Where I, again, kind of look at the same thing. It's just those really wet environments, sometimes winter conditions. I might look at that depending on, like, if you have a shelter that's not super breathable, then something like this is going to be helpful, the Loft-Tech. But yeah, like when I think of going to Alaska, which is something I dream of doing here shortly, getting up there and doing some backpacking where I can't self-rescue really. I can't get help as soon as I call out, things like that. There is some peace of mind of going with the Loft-Tech because if it does get compromised, it doesn't lose complete value. So if you completely soak out a bag of down, or even partially, you slowly start to lose loft or warmth, whereas this one you will not lose as much. So there's a few scenarios like that, but for me, most of the time I'm still able to run this, but I'm in a desert, and that's where I live, and that's where I backpack most of the time. And I think that both of these are made very consciously with weight in mind. While this may be a primarily synthetic bag, there's really no synthetic bag out there that can compare with it as far as the weight and the warmth ratios of this product. So they're both weight conscious, but obviously one's slightly more weight conscious for things like through hikers that you're packing every day, miles and miles and miles and miles, where you might lean towards something more like this. So I think that's a good breakdown as far as just the differences in the two. They both have a lot of advantages. So choosing one might be the other. The other thing I might add too is just by sheer production cost, you're going to save some money in this one. And because of that, maybe extra durability, if I was buying this to give to my kid as their first sleeping bag or something like that, you may want to lean towards this one and then have them graduate into something more like this, just because this one is going to be a little bit more durable, a little bit more forgiving of negligence in care and use, essentially. So, okay, so that kind of wraps this up. As you can see, one more thing here is just that this is that negative 15-degree model, and this will be available in that Summit as well. For a limited time, as a limited run, we wanted to see what your guys' thoughts and reactions were to us adding a negative bag this winter season. So, okay, that wraps up the Summits and the Atlases. Let's jump over to the Aeries and cover the new updates for those, which are really exciting, and also the new installation we're rolling out into those. All right, so we've got the new Aeries up here on the wall, and as you can see right now, they don't all look like each other. We've got a down model Aerie, we've got a Loft-Tech hybrid filled Aerie, and we've got another down Aerie. That's a 0, this is a 0, this is a 15, which is also new because now we're offering these in a 0-degree capacity, and we're taking the old 20-degree and removing it to a 15-degree. So in the future, these will be available in a 0, a 15, a 30, and then the Loft-Tech version will be available in a 45-degree model option as well. So pretty excited about all those. So let's go ahead and dive into some of these changes that we've done on the products and why we've done some of those changes. For starters, you'll see that we've redesigned these baffles. A big reason for that is while those old square baffles worked great when you were laying on the ground, when you put it on a hammock, there was a slight tendency for a little bit of shifting inside of those baffles. So by going to this model, these baffles now will run parallel to the ground. And when they run parallel to the ground, they really can't shift any which way that insulation. So it's going to help lock in that insulation better for hammock use. You'll also see that we have an integrated suspension system here. It's going to be a little bit harder to show, but essentially, instead of having a separate suspension system that we send with the Aeries, now it's going to be completely built in. And to show that, basically what you have is on this end you have 2 loops. Now if you wanted to, you could trim these down, make these a little bit smaller, but these loops are going to go straight into your carabiner. And then you're going to go ahead and just pull this and adjust this down to where you want it. It's going to lock it in place, but if you do need to raise this up or adjust it, you're going to adjust it on this end right here. So you adjust the sag with this cord lock right here. You're just going to go ahead and hook those right in. And it's a really, really unique and built-in suspension system that's going to work a lot better. You don't have to keep track of 2 systems anymore. You can just simply throw it up on the hammock. And one of the reasons we wanted to change this wasn't so much that people were losing suspension kits or different things like that. It was actually that they were hanging this up improperly. And when they'd hang this up improperly and use those old tabs that we used to have running down the side, it just wasn't getting as good of a seal. I think less people are using it in all of its different capacities because of that. So we wanted to make this easier, so we built in the suspension system. Now, if you were not using this on a hammock, you can still use this to tighten. It would work the same on the head end here, but you can simply tighten this up and seal that around your shoulders. So it's got a ton of use and multi-purpose functions by building that right into the bag. And then last here is we've changed these zippers, and we've added zipper baffles. So now we've got those same boxed baffle systems where they're going to be completely squared off, create an enormous amount of warmth that can be retained right there in those zippers. So it's really going to add warmth to this bag. Anything that I missed here, Brigham, on the updates?
No, I think we got it covered.
Okay, so obviously we do have the down options and the loft tech options. We've talked a little bit about which option might suit best for you, but again, especially in this capacity, we felt like it was important to bring out the loft tech version because a lot of people are using these for a very multi-purpose type bag. Maybe they're throwing them in a bug out bag or an emergency type kit. Maybe they're just putting them in the back of their car and taking them to sporting events and things like that. And if that's all that you're using this for, you're gonna save some money and be better off essentially just getting the loft tech version of this. Now, if you're backpacking with this and you really want that high weight to warmth ratios, obviously the down just can't be beat in those weight to warmth ratios. So we still have that 800 fill power RDFL certified and hydrophobic coated down. But we just felt like it was very important. That's also why we've released this in the 45 degree option. And that 45 degree option is only available in loft tech. Just because you can use that as a picnic blanket, you can use it on a hammock. It's just got all these different functions, and the loft tech just broadens that and makes it slightly more affordable to everyone. So I think that's going to wrap up all of these changes that we're very excited about. Again, we feel like this really helps bring us closer to our goal of just living ultralight each and every day, simplifying things, minimizing things, increasing function and decreasing weights and compression sizes. So super excited about this. If you have any questions, just reach out to us on our website, outdoorvitals.com. We have a chat feature there where you can live chat with us, or if we're not there, it'll just send us a direct email message and we'll get back to you as shortly as possible. But thanks for being here. Leave the comments below on this video as well. We do appreciate those and look at those, and obviously we do because we make feedback and adjustments to products based off of those. So thanks for tuning in.